that was news to me, Quinn. I appreciate it. I'll be sending you a bill for my services, keeping you involved. But exactly, yeah, exactly. Well, like I said, my name is Jason Barber. I'm actually a legally blind cattle farmer located in southern Middle Tennessee. I'm about 50 miles southeast of Nashville in a little community called Unionville. Born and raised there. I've been there. I'm 53 years old, and I never think about leaving there anywhere else. This is a new experience for me because I have spoke at some sessions before. Actually, speaking of agribility, they had their national convention this last week in Atlanta, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go there and join in a couple of presentations. But honestly, I can only remember maybe one person that was visually impaired that was there, and they were actually completely blind. So being able to speak before several people here that are obviously visually impaired of some sort, whether you're completely blind or barely can see, and if you cannot see, or if it really limited on your vision, I'm 6'4", I'm 280 pounds. I can bench press 400 pounds. But now to give you, I'm actually 5'3", 140 pounds, and I barely lift a fork. So here we go. You gotta be taller than 5'3". 5'5". So there you go. Give me those 2 inches there. You're taller than me. You're not 5'3". There. But no, it's a blessing to be able to come and share a little bit of how I have been able to adapt and do what I can on the farm, because typically you don't visualize, and I use the term visualize loosely, you don't visualize someone who's legally blind. And there again, I cannot sit here and compare myself to somebody who's totally blind, let alone somebody that's lost their vision at birth or been blind completely all their life. I'm blessed to have a lot of my vision still peripheral, central vision. I have a condition called retinitis pigmentosa, which Quinn I know can relate with. It's kind of an odd story, and I don't know if I'll go back to Quinn to talk about how he and I first conversed, and I was sharing with him about my story, and then when I told him about retinitis pigmentosa, and he's like, that's what I have. So we automatically made a connection, and as I kind of went into my story more, this has been, a year and a half ago probably. Yeah. We was talking, and he said, man, I'd love for you to share your story and come speak, never knowing a year and a half later I was going to be in front of a group. So it's a privilege, and honestly, it's become a new passion of mine to be able to speak. But I wouldn't be remiss without telling everybody how I became where I'm at today, or the position that I'm in. Like I said, I'm 53. My family has always, we've got a farm that's been in our family, 100 acres, since 1866. 58 years now. And for many years, it was my grandfather, my dad, and myself. I mean, I grew up on the farm. I was my grandfather's shadow. It's all I ever knew. So I knew that's where I was going to wind up someday in my life. In 1997, my grandfather passed away at 82 years of age, which, I mean, he was getting old. His health was deteriorating, so it was somewhat expected. That's do what? Pretty good old age for yeah. So, but he was my, if you want to say an idol, he was my hero. A lot of my characteristics that I have now goes back to him, and a lot of my work ethic goes back to him. I wouldn't be where I am today without him. My dad, in the early to mid 80s, he was one of the very first founding members of our local volunteer fire department. There again, I was able to get to be part of that. Growing up in it, I knew that I wanted to be a farmer and I wanted to be a firefighter. Well, in 1991, I got to accomplish at least one of them starting out. I became a career firefighter. I started working for the Bedford County Fire Department, and like I said, in September of 1991, and I worked my way up through the ranks, which at that time, we're a small department. So when I say moving up through the ranks, it wasn't very many options, hoops that you had to jump through or ladder to go up. I moved up to a lieutenant's position. In the latter, probably the mid-latter, let's see, get my time frame right. Yeah, around 1997 or so, I noticed that there was some issues with my eyesight. I could tell driving at night was getting a little more difficult. Of course, obviously being visually impaired and driving a fire truck is not a good practice. So, there again, I wasn't in major bad shape. I just knew that there was something going on. My officers above me, the chief, they could tell that so they suggested me going to get checked out. Well, after going through a few tests and stuff like that, they said, well, it looks like you've got retinitis pigmentosa, which is a degenerative disease. There's no cure, no treatment. It's hereditary. It could have skipped generations, which my great-grandmother was blind. Of course, she passed away right at 100 years of age, and back then, probably didn't even know the name retinitis pigmentosa. So that was a learning curve as far as that. So in 2000, that's when it was kind of a mutual decision between myself and the fire chief. I decided to drop out of the fire service. Had to give up a career that I thought I would retire from. Well, luckily enough, I was still able to drive my own vehicle. I wasn't at that point that I couldn't. I still had a driver's license and all that, but it was just a mutual understanding being at emergency services. So I transitioned into being a 911 dispatcher. Never thought I'd find a job that I enjoyed more than working with the fire service, and that was being a dispatcher, because I was able to help more people. I was involved with law enforcement, medical, and of course fire department dispatching. Worked there from 2007. At that time, my eyesight was still continuing to get worse. Not bad, but enough that I knew there was things happening. They had already told me that you will go blind. It may be, completely blind. It may be 10 years, maybe 20 years, maybe 50 years, maybe never. But they said odds are you will go completely blind. So in 2007, I left the 911 dispatch. And I knew that at that time, okay, where am I going now? Farm. That's where I was going to wind up. I said, okay, my focus is on the farm. Like I said, my grandfather passed away in 97. My dad and I took over the farm, about 100 acres there, and we worked it together. Fast forward about, I'll say 2010, my dad then was diagnosed with Parkinson's and dementia. Okay, well, the story gets even a little deeper. I said, okay, his mind was deteriorating, my eyesight was deteriorating. How are we going to make this work? Often I'd wondered, okay, how am I going to continue this family legacy that's been around all these years? I was an 8th generation farmer. So we done very well. I was, if you want to call it, the brawn of the farm. I'd done most of the work. Of course, he was still able to do a lot, but he was the eyesight. Anytime we worked together, if I needed something to look at or tell me what this says, he would do it. And if he needed me to work or do something, lift or whatever, and of course, even then, he could tell that my eyesight was deteriorating. But this was my dad, and I've been around all my life. And I would do stuff, and he would like, okay, how did you do that? He would take a simple fishing pole. Everybody probably knows, if you don't know, how small a fishing hook is. Well, he was sitting in a house just a few years ago, and he couldn't run the line through the fishing pole and hook bait and put the hook on. I said, give me that thing. He said, you can't do that. He said, you can't see that hole. So I said, well, that's one thing. It goes back to my grandfather and my dad. Don't tell me I can't do something. So I sat there and I grabbed that fishing pole and I run the line up through the fishing pole eyes, and I had the hook in just a few seconds. I had it threaded, knot tied. I said, go fishing. He said, I don't see how you done that. But anyway. Yeah, so, we learned as we go. Well, there again, as the eyesight was deteriorating, we both was wondering, okay, how are you going to do this? Because I was the only one in my family that knew the farm, been on all my life, and was going to continue it. Nobody else in my family showed any interest in the farm. So I knew pretty confidently when the day comes that something ever happened to my dad or my mom that I was going to inherit that farm. But how can I do it? So as my eyesight decreased and his dementia got worse and little Parkinson's got worse, in 2018, life took a huge, sudden change for myself and my dad. In 2018, well, my mom had just got out of back surgery and out of rehab. This was January the 31st of 2018. February the 14th of that, of course, Valentine's, my parents was going to go to take, or my dad was going to take my mom out to one of her favorite restaurants in Shelbyville. And yes, I did say Shelbyville. I think somebody mentioned Shelbyville earlier. And we got there. I take that back up. I wasn't even going to go. I was like, it's Valentine's, Mom, Dad, you go have a good time. So Mom calls me and she said, you going with us? I'm like, nope, not going to go. I said, this is your time. It's Valentine's. You just got out of physical rehabilitation? I says, y'all go. Of course, my mom, being my mom, she said, it's just another day. Come on and go. I'm like, food, I'm in. Let's go. So I loaded up and went with them. Now, bear in mind, my dad was always the type of person that would want to be the leader. It didn't matter where we went. I would stay with Mom, and my dad, he'd walk 50 foot in front of us, stop, and wait on us to catch up. Then he'd walk 50 foot more, stop, and wait on us to catch up. Well, when we got to the square in Shelbyville, we got out of the car, and Dad stayed with Mom, which never happens, which I wasn't complaining. Hey, it's great. Y'all hang out. I'm going to go on ahead. Got up on the sidewalk. I started toward the restaurant, came to the cross section. Now, Shelbyville is a really small town. This is like 3:30 in the afternoon. Not a lot of traffic. I get to the intersection. Of course, being visually impaired, I stop, listen for traffic. Of course, we had crossing signs, but I knew, well, nothing's coming. So I commenced across the street. Mom and Dad probably 20 foot behind me. Well, just as I stepped up on the other side, I heard a sound, and I'll try to mock it. I'm like, what's that? I turned around, and there my mom and dad laid in the middle of the street.
Oh my God.
There's a gentleman come around the curve as they was crossing the crosswalk and mowed them down with a pickup truck. Now, I'd been involved with Mercy Service for many, many years. I knew it was bad. So I first came to my dad. He was laying flat on his back in the middle of the street. Nothing. No response. I thought, he's gone. Went over. My mom, she was kind of, I guess you'd say, hunkered over, what I would say. And I could tell she had some pretty bad brain trauma. I knew this was bad. So luckily, now, the gentleman that hit him, I felt bad for him. It was an obvious accident. He just didn't see him for whatever reason. We don't know. I'm not going to say it was a cell phone. I ain't going to say he looked off. He felt bad, and I felt bad for him, but I had to tend to them. Well, while I was attending to my mom, of course, when I was on the sidewalk, it seemed like it took me 3 days to get to them, but they were literally, 10 feet away. And while I was tending to Mom, Dad woke up. Now, my nickname is Duck, and anybody, you're welcome to call me that. I don't care, because I've had that name since I was a kid. And Dad woke up, and he said, Duck. He said, what happened? Okay, I said, Dad's back. So my attention shifted to him. Now, by that time, of course, I had already called 911 myself, and I shifted from my mom to him, and of course, I had to try to explain to him a little bit of what happened, but I knew with his dementia, his Parkinson's, and what had just happened, I did not need to tell him anything about what happened to Mom. Fast forward, got him transported to the hospital, and of course, they brought Mom on here to Nashville, to Vanderbilt, and Dad they went to Shelbyville, and he was coming back around, so he just more or less got knocked out with a pretty good bump on his head. But the doctors told me, even in Shelbyville, it's not good for your mom, so I knew that. So that brings me to the whole point of this story, and you just have to know the full story to kind of grasp how the good Lord has really intervened on making things happen and putting people into my right path. Of course, Mom officially passed away the next day, which I knew she was gone that day, and luckily she didn't suffer. So I'd already been told with a traumatic brain, he had a subdural hematoma, which is more or less just a slight bleeding of not necessarily the brain, but around the skull, and he was going to be fine. The eyesight, now I've lost Mom, which was a big help as far as taking care of us, doing our paperwork and stuff like that. What are we going to do now? Now my dad, We don't know what's going to happen with him. We'll go forward about 6 months, 8 months maybe. This ties me into agribility. Never heard agribility. Matter of fact, I didn't know very little about vocational rehab. Vocational rehab to me was helping vocational schools. I thought vocational school, vocational rehab, that helped vocational students or manufacturing get jobs and such as that, never thinking that it would help somebody like myself. Well, at that time, my sister-in-law, who lived in Knoxville, was at a cross-country meet with my niece and got to talking to one of the parents. And they asked the parent, says, okay, what do you do? Just casual conversation. This was Eileen Legault. And she said, I work for the University of Tennessee in the agricultural department. Oh, okay, cool. Well, what exactly do you do then? She said, well, I'm work with a group called Agribility who help farmers who are disabled. Pew, red flag. You do what? She said, we try to help farmers that are disabled continue farming. Well, then Jessie, my sister-in-law then, told her about my story. Just about a month later, I'm actually meeting with Eileen. They came to my farm and the local ag extension officer and a couple others, or one other. And at that time, my dad was still with me, and we all met together. Kind of wanted to tell them what the long-range plans, how I wanted to continue doing what I do and trying to keep this farm going, even visually impaired. There again, that was, God put the right person in my path at the right time. So we started to work, started with VR. Okay, I met up with them. Now I'm having to sell this idea because you're, again, a visually impaired person trying to farm. It just doesn't let alone work with cattle. Not a vegetable farmer. I'm working with a 1,200-pound cow. Okay, you don't really get that idea. And of course, they're trying to convince them that what I wanted to do was a challenge. And when I spoke with Agribility, this was one of the sessions that wanted me to speak about, was the good and the bad about vocational rehab. And I can't say anything necessarily bad about vocational rehab. My ideas was more what they could do to maybe improve vocational rehab. So after I finally convinced them what I wanted to do, they want to know, okay, so your dad's wanting to hire you on. No, my dad's not wanting to hire me on. Yes, I'll work with my dad and for my dad, but he doesn't technically pay me. I'm trying to learn the system where I can take over this family farm and continue doing our heritage. They said, well, how much money are you going to make? Obviously, you're not a farmer, because I can't tell you that. If I could tell you how much money I'm going to make on a farm, I probably wouldn't be in farm. I'd be a psychic and making a lot more money. So like I said, finally I was approved, and then at that time, that's when I got introduced to Meredith. And I take that back. Before that, I met with another organization. I can't remember the name of it. I'm sure Meredith knows, but it was a similar group that helps you obtain your technology. Well, they got me started. They came in and got me some Zoom text program for my PC and these ideas. But there again, this was new to them. My primary problem out of everything that I do on the farm, I can do about anything, was doing this little thing called reading the cattle tags. I've got cattle tags that's in the ears that tell me the numbers of the livestock corresponding to my records. And I couldn't see the numbers very well, let alone try to keep track of it. So after I convinced them how I wanted this to work, they hooked me up with some assistive technology. Well, before I really got it all, never did get it all in hand, that group folded and went out of business. So, okay, now what am I going to do? Well, it went on several months, maybe a year, and that's when I think the Star Center, Meredith, and then contacted me. Said, okay, we're going to pick up this contract and take off with it, but we need you to go back to vocational rehab and restart your case. I'm like, oh, here we go now. Now I got to go through all of this again and try to make it happen, which really wasn't as bad as I was thinking it's going to be. Luckily, I had my records pretty current. and was able to do it. So Star Center came out, Meredith specifically, really good to work with. She helped me get the assistive technologies and get me started. And one of the biggest things that I obtained, not necessarily through the Star Center, but the TDAP program, I think it's called, I was able to obtain my first smartphone. Okay, now this was new for this old country boy, a smartphone. Because my brother had one for years, and I said, I'll never own a smartphone. And he said, why you say that? I said, because it makes you dumber. And he said, what do you mean by that? I said, because you can ask Siri everything, and you won't think for yourself. So, but after I got it, I mean, and of course I was jokingly saying that, but I was still operating the old Samsung flip phone. So, and the only reason I stuck with it, because they only had one particular model that the colors were contrasting and they were big enough that I could kind of halfway see them. Even as my eyesight deteriorated, I had to start using reading glasses to even see just a simple text. Now, when you get a smartphone, you go to the voiceovers. When you open VoiceOver on your iPhone, guess what? You can't ask anybody you know who's got an iPhone to help you out because the gestures are completely different. So, guess what? I had to teach myself. Now, you can ask my wife. There's no telling how many times that phone almost went out the window. Because I'm patient, and of course, she wants to help, and bless her heart, she can tell you today, one thing that my famous words, I don't like to be beat. I want to figure it out. I don't ask for help. And that's another pride thing that I'm having to swallow as I get a little older and my eyesight gets worse. But luckily, I was starting to learn the iPhone very well. Meredith came out, like I said, was a big part coaching me out and teaching me all the different technologies. But to do what I need to do, read the cow tags, it still wasn't doing what I need to do. And I started, we had an OrCam. We tried it. We tried all sorts of technologies. As a matter of fact, when Meredith wasn't there, I was contacting other companies. And when I say across the globe, I'm not being facetious. I talked to Israel. I talked to New Zealand. I talked to OrCam is based out of Israel. I said, I simply want to see these numbers on these tags. And the thing about an OrCam, it's great. It's an awesome tool. But to be able to read the information you need, it has to take a picture and process it. Okay. Can you have a 1,200-pound cow sit still and watch the birdie while I take this picture? We was definitely experimenting, and so it was just, but yeah, that's exactly. They were. You're trying to take a picture of me, okay.
What are you doing?
So, it was a big learning curve, and like I said, all set in the back of my mind, I've got to get this because, again, my dad's got Parkinson's and dementia, and I don't know how long his mental status and all that. He was still pretty sharp. He knew money and he knew farm. So I was pretty blessed with that. Well, August the 27th in 2020, there again, another blow. Bam. Went to wake up my dad one day, gone. So in the span of about 2.5 years, I lost my mom and my dad. And where it was me and my dad on the farm, guess who it was then? Just me. Now, with that said, I'm not saying that to brag. I have got an awesome group of neighbors and friends in the area. If I need help, my dad was a type that if he'd stumble just a little bit, especially in his older days, he'd say, well, call so-and-so to help you. Call so-and-so, we need help. Call so-and-so. Nope. What I say a while ago, I don't like to be beat. I want to figure this out. And I wanted my friends and family know me well enough now. They know if Duck calls for help, he needs help. He has gone through every possibility and he just can't do it. And can't is typically not in my vocabulary. My grandfather's, one of his words was, can't, never could do anything. So I try to do anything and everything I can. So with that said, someone asked earlier about what you can do if you're visually impaired, and applications on the phones, they are just advancing on a regular basis. Regular basis. It's crazy just in the short time that I've known Meredith and the Star Center and finding different applications to do. I'm the type that I know what something's designed to do, but I want to know what it can do, because I know there's stuff out there. When they created these applications, they didn't envision a legally blind cattle farmer working with livestock. So to be able to find a technology that'll do that is pretty amazing.
What we finally found to read the cow tags?
Which one was it?
The way around.
The way around. Yeah, there's different. And, with that said, I'll go ahead and make a shameless plug, if you give me the moment. For a long time, a lot of people, even around home, they ask me, that's known me all my life, okay, if you're legally blind now and you can't see well, how can you do this? How can you do that? Well, just about a month and a half, 2 months ago, I actually decided to start a YouTube channel for myself. And what this YouTube channel is where I actually take my assistive technology and show people how I use it. For the VR reps that are in here, you can tell us what's out there. You can tell us, what you can use it for, but you can't tell us how to use it and how we use it. So I felt like this was an end user type way to network and show people this is how I use it. And the only way that I've done a lot of it is experimenting for myself and like, I wonder if it'll do this. I wonder if it'll do that. Even with Meredith, when we tried the Seeing AI application, which that's another thing that I really push for, is free apps. I don't know about you guys, but free is for me. So anything that I can find that's free, that'll accomplish what I need to do, bank. And that's what I'm in on. So the Seeing AI application, iPhones is my choice. Their Androids are good, and the only reason I stick with the iPhone is what I started on and learning it. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know how many of you do utilize YouTube. I understand being visually impaired, that doesn't, coast very well on a lot of people. But there are a lot of really good narrated videos out there that even if you're totally blind, you can pick up on a lot of good information. So in my videos, I do my very best to narrate it and instruct it in a fashion to where you can't see it all. So that way, even if you're totally blind, you can still get a little something out of it.
What's your YouTube channel? I've got YouTube open ready to plug it in.
All right. Well, that's what I fixed to say. When I checked it just a few moments ago, and I had 73 subscribers. So if I don't see that number increase after this meeting, I'm going to be extremely disappointed. But all you need to search is farming blind with duck.
Jason, you've gotten a lot of subscribers. When I subscribed a couple weeks ago, you only had like 60.
Yeah, it jumped about 10 after the Agribility conference.
That's all. Oh, agribility.
So like I said, I made a shameless plug. So the proof is in the pudding. So if I don't see that number increase, I didn't do nothing here any good today. So
I will say I cannot see the screen, and I watch his videos and have no trouble following them.
yeah. So
He does a really good job.
another net resource that I actually met this guy, Sam Seavey. He has a video series called The Blind Life. And I actually got to meet him back in October, and we had dinner together. He was at a thing in Lebanon here. So he and I pitch back and forth and share different, and he's all the time, anybody's familiar with him, he's always experimenting with new technologies. People, that companies send stuff to him all the time. So,
Brenda has a question. Sorry,
yo, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Doug.
Yeah, raise your hand. No. Just blurt it out.
Hey, Doug, I'm still confused about the cow tag.
Mm-hmm.
What devices are you using now, if any, and is that lucrative for you now? Like, are you still having trouble?
You just need to watch my videos, girl. No, actually, the Seeing AI, it actually, for anybody that's familiar with it, it has different channels where you can do.
Short text would be pretty helpful with that.
Sure text will not work that well.
Really?
Because one thing is the tag is moving. It won't sit still long enough. Now, one thing that it did and strictly on experimentation, and as soon as I found out it worked, the handwriting channel actually reads it better than any of them. Why? I have no clue, but it did. But when I tell you about the next app that I'm using, you will throw Seeing AI out the window.
Really?
I'm ready.
Go to the Be My Eyes. But Be My Eyes has been around for years utilizing volunteers. Now they utilize AI. And I'm telling you, I've got a video specific toward it, but I'll give you an example. When I first downloaded, and I discovered that through Sam, and I was on the farm, and I was on my side-by-side. Now, yes, I drive a side-by-side on the farm. I still do tractors. I still do it all. But bear in mind, I've been on this farm since I was a kid. I know every little spot, every gate hole, every place around there. So don't get freaked out when you hear, "You're a tractor!"
They go super slow.
Yeah, I just...
And there's not a lot of traffic. So.
No, that's right.
I would
Yeah. But I pulled up, and my cows was in the pasture, and I thought, I wonder how this will work. So it took a picture, it processed it. Now this is how crazy this is. It said there's a black cow standing in front of you looking at the camera with a calm look on its face. Now how in the crap does it know it's calm, mad, sad, or whatever? And it said it's got two tags, one in its left ear, one in its right ear. The one on the left is blue, I think. It's a yellow tag in its right ear with a number 12 in its ear. And I'm like, what? And then it said there are two cows behind it. Now I'm paraphrasing just a little. There's two cows standing behind it grazing. The grass appears to be green and brown, which denotes it's possibly fall or early spring.
Wow.
There are trees in the background with no leaves on it.
What app is this?
There's two cows or calves or something laying behind it on the ground.
That's crazy.
One better than that. There's a pile of cow dung on the ground behind it. Now you tell me how it knew cow dung, and it's not a pile of dirt or anything else. It's that's the AI part. Now, I went to, in one of my videos here, I had 3 calves in my barn lot. I happened to be 3 of them standing there right beside me. So I took a picture of them. I said, all right, let's test it out again. I tested it, and it said again, I'll paraphrase a little. There's 3 calves, and new calves. There's 3 calves standing in front of you looking at the camera. The one on the left is red. 2 in the middle are black. The one on the left has a tag in its ear, number 15. The one in the middle has a tag 12. The one on the right has a tag 16. I'm like, whoa. It just told me all this right here. So I was like, all right. Now with the AI, it's interactive. You can ask it questions. So I pulled it up. I said, what was that number on the left again? The tag on the left is number 13. It told me that information.
So is AI a recording or a real human being? Artificial intelligence.
It's, I addressed this in one of the videos that I know, and you hear it on the news and everything, AI is the devil. I'm like, yeah. And that, actually, I had a friend of mine at the little market, which I go, we're in the country. We've got a little country store literally across the yard from me that I go to about every morning. And I was telling him about it, and he said, that's opening Pandora's box. That's the devil. And I'm like, heck, the internet was the devil 30 years ago. But look what everybody uses it for. It's not what it is, it's how it's used. So, for me, it's a blessing. It's a gift of God. It's not devil. So, and after he thought, well, yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. It's just another tool. So the technology is out there and it's advancing and more. Now, I did try to test it, and I said, all right, I'm going to see how good this thing really is. So I've got a 2,000-pound plus bull on in my herd. Took a picture of it. Okay, there's a big cow standing in front of you, blah, blah, blah. And I said, is this a boy or a girl? And it's like, well, I can't tell. Can you take another picture? So I shifted around to the other side, and it's like, well, I'm unable to still get that information. I'm paraphrasing. Well, I basically took the picture of his hardware, and it didn't tell me what it was. So I'm like, so it can't tell you everything you want to know. But yeah, with and then some people say, well, how do you keep track of it once you get that information? Well, there's another assistive technology. The iPhone's got the Notes application. My dad was huge with Excel spreadsheets. He would always keep his information on his computer at home. Well, he'd go down to the farm and he'd write down this information, take it back home, plug it in the computer. Well, that just didn't work that well for me. But with the Notes application, you can actually plug it. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just give you an example. I happen to have.
Doing that, Mr. Duck, I have good news for you. Your
Yeah.
YouTube channel has 75 subscribers.
Lord have mercy.
Speech on.
Let's see here.
Amazon Alexa.
Open Notes.
All
For-
iCloud.
for-
Back
yes.
button.
May I take a picture?
Yeah,
I want to demonstrate.
for sure. Get my best side.
I don't know what I'm eating.
Text feed. No. Check toolbar. No. All iCloud. Back. No. Text field.
Back up here.
Return to Siri. All iCloud.
I wasn't ready to do this, so I'm not prepared.
49 has 30 has black.
Here we go.
white
That's
faced
where.
head,
See if I got my information.
49 has black
Now it's
steer
doing it,
born
okay.
March 10, 2024. Modified 30 has black white faced heifer born January 15. Modified yes.
For those of you who can't see that, I'm not even looking at my phone. I'm not.
Sir, landscape 30 has black white
See,
faced head. 49 has
I
black
simply
steer
enter
born
in my
March 10,
information, and it tells me what I want to know.
Modified yes.
I'm actually trying to work on an
49
instructional
has
video
black
now,
steer born March
doing
10,
the.
2000 speech off.
Well, let me see. Open Be My Eyes.
Oh, it took a picture of me instead of you. Whoopsie. That was stupid.
Here's the Be My Eyes application. I'm gonna see how it works in here.
Cool.
Oh, your speech is on.
Speech on.
Here,
Take picture button. Take
There you
picture.
go. Okay, I'll let you do it then.
Analyzing picture. Please wait.
Hope I got good internet connection in here.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about too.
Yeah.
Take picture. Dimmed button.
Yep, that's what it is.
Taking some time, yeah.
Yeah, it's not even.
The picture shows a group of 9 people sitting in a room with a large window covered by horizontal blinds in the background. They are seated in a semicircle facing towards the camera. Most of them appear to be focused on something in their hands or laps, possibly phones or other items.
That's how you can tell everybody's on their phone.
Yeah, that's right. They're not paying me any attention. Let's just.
It told me in the middle ground is a man looking at his phone or tablet.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's you.
So, let's see.
A person with long hair. A person with short hair and a beard is wearing a dark turtleneck and has their hands together on their lap. Action. A person in a dark jacket. A person with short hair and a beard is wearing. A person with long hair tied back is smiling at the camera, wearing a dark jacket. Next to them, a person with shoulder-length hair and glasses is seated, wearing a striped sweater and jeans, with their hands on their lap.
It's telling me all this off this one picture.
A person with short hair, wearing a dark jacket and pants, is looking down at something in their lap.
Okay, who was it? Wasn't paying attention to me. You're busted. You're busted. But now, like I said, I won't go into the interaction. But go to my videos and it'll tell more about it. But it's pretty amazing the Seeing AI. The Way Around app. I could go on forever and ever as far as the different technology. Yeah.
Say something about Way Around real quick.
Yes, you can.
So, I do freelance writing work for a company, or I used to do freelance writing work for a company, and his day job was Way Around.
Mm-hmm.
I have some unfortunate news about Way Around.
Okay.
Their business is probably about to fold.
Okay.
their business is not doing well. So
I can
hope
understand
you
that
can
because
find-
I actually emailed the one of the head honchos, Jessica, about what I had done on my stuff.
Yeah, I know her.
So, and I never got a reply back. So it actually made me think.
Yeah.
Which, but there are.
The person that I was working with, he was a developer for them for years.
Mm-hmm.
And they moved him. Not only is he a developer, but he also managed social media. He just left that company
Mm-hmm.
because they were having trouble paying his salary.
Yeah.
So, way around is probably not going to be around for too much longer.
But there's always somebody out there.
Yes.
There's always somebody that'll pick up the ball. Now they use NFC tags, and I found out that you can buy NFC tags off Amazon
Pretty much.
internet.
And I've been playing with them to see what I can do with them.
Yeah. So, and the thing, that's a shame too because I was just starting to incorporate their system into my herd slowly. But there's something probably come along better. So.
I've been playing around with like figuring out how to do it yourself and with NFC tags, and then being able to teach people how to just do it themselves with the tags that are out there.
Yeah, that you can get the NFC tags dime a dozen all over the place. It's getting a reader. Now they do NFC. I actually done some research, and they actually have NFC reader applications that you can use, and you may have to customize it for your application.
You
But
can also use it as a shortcut to an app or a file.
oh, it's crazy how much it'll do.
So if you have a file that has the
Just-
information for one cattle and you use the tag for that, then it would be
2:51 p.m.
So I'm playing around with it.
I know my time's getting limited. I could go on. Anybody that's got any, wants to know any more, I'll say this right out the gate. I'm not certified in nothing. Everything that I've learned, I learned myself to cater to my particular situation. So with anybody's situation, it's different. Just like eyesight, everybody's different, and there's no way that I can tell you. People ask me about your eyesight. So what can you see? What's it like? Blah, blah, blah. And I tell them, look, I can tell you all day long, but I use it like this. It's like diabetes. If you don't have it, you'll never understand it. So that's how I can try to explain it a little bit, but there's no way you're going to fully comprehend how I adapt and what I do. Speaking like this has kind of become a passion of mine, being able to share the story and get the word out. I hired a video crew out of my own pocket. We're actually putting together a quote-unquote documentary on myself from my childhood up to where we are now, to where people can kind of see where I'm at. Do what?
Maybe YouTube.
Maybe YouTube, yeah. It probably won't be a Grammy or an Emmy award-winning documentary, but hey.
Well, it might be. You can put it on YouTube because your channel's grown again. You're at 80 subscribers.
I'm gonna get more right here than I did at the whole Agribility conference.
I sent it to a few people.
You need to put more videos out there now.
Yeah, I can start. I need to get to work now.
I sent it to a few people.
On the agribility conference though, so.
But anytime like I told them at the conference, I'll talk to a fence post. If somebody got any questions, I'll tell you whatever I know, and yo.
If I may.
Yes?
It's Kevin, by the way.
Huh?
I had designed a podcast, and this was about 2 years ago, among many disabilities from legal blindness to diabetes to epilepsy to anything you can think of.
Uh-huh.
About the practicality of living with these problems. Now, as you mentioned again, you have a YouTube channel of your own, explaining the technologies and what you do. I don't know if a podcast like this would be of any sort of interest. This is not monetarily designed. It's
Yeah.
just for my own education and my own advocacy.
Yeah.
Being legally blind, epileptic, cerebral palsy, and many other things. If you do know anybody that is interested, you can talk with Quinn and email me back. Because the hard part about this is getting people involved who want to talk about the disabilities themselves.
Yeah. I think that's. I actually had somebody come up to me after my session at the Agribility and asked me if I was part of a peer support group or anything like that, and I said, well, not necessarily a part of any groups. I mean, I'll talk to anybody, and they said, well, this girl, I think she was actually with VR or something. She said my mother is legally blind, and she said she's kind of got in a shell and won't come out of it because you don't know how to cope with it. Would you be willing to talk to her about it? And I'm like, give her my number. I don't care. That's fine.
That, a lot of folks with any sort of disability is talking about it becomes sort of embarrassing
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
to talk about this practically. Because the whole point, if I could educate a doctor about this,
Mm-hmm.
which may happen and may not, but if I can explain to a doctor, I mean, that's the highest level of education you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me, I talked to a doctor whenever I was going through all my tests, and with retinitis pigmentosa, they really couldn't find anything. And they was like, well, we're sorry, but we really can't find anything wrong with your eyes. I said, you don't think there's something wrong with my eyes? And they was like, we can't find anything. I said, give me your keys. Let's go for a ride. I'll show you right quick there's something jacked up about my eyes, So, and that like you said, like you're saying, it's kind of you gotta sell it. I mean, that's sad that you've got to do that. But as you can tell with my disability, humor is my coping tool. I go at it, it is what it is. My grandfather's famous words, and I had a guy tell me one day, that's probably the best saying he ever heard. It's not the things that can't be helped that bother me. Meaning that, if you can't help it, big deal. Oh, come on through. Yeah, same here.
If you can, we can exchange information. That would be ideal.
Yeah, that's fine.
If you want, I can just pass your information.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Quinn's got it or anybody like that. I mean, but I'm gonna wrap it up because I could sit here till dark, and it's just not. Everybody's got to get out of here. But like I said, I appreciate.